Word Connections is a good program. It comes with a lot of steps and a lot of materials. I am going to show you how I do it. It's an efficient way to do it over the course of 2 days, 25 minutes each day. Day 1, I'm going to do warm-up, affix bank, and then wordplay and write words together the way that I do it. I have my lesson plan book here that I printed out from the website. I have the materials that I have printed out from the website, and there's the lesson 17 materials, and then also I needed the 7-8 materials for the warm-up. And the students have their folder, and on the left side of the folder they're going to need this affix bank today, and they may need their inflectional endings sheet, and then they would also have their award sheet, and there's a lot of different sheets that you're supposed to write on. I don't find the Speedy Read one to be helpful because they give them really easy Speedy Read words one lesson, and then they give them hard ones and they go back to easy and medium, so you're not really improving. And then I also don't do the one that has the presents on it. That's the one you're supposed to do at the end. I just use the one that is for the beat the clock, and I just use it at the end of each day, not each day, but each lesson. And you wouldn't need to have a reward sheet if you didn't want to, but there's a lot of paperwork that I don't use. But if you wanted an award sheet, you could get the one that has them headed toward that rocket, and then you could just have them put a sticker, but not on day 1. You would do that at the end of the lesson, which would be day 2 or day 3. Warm up. The lesson plan directs me to go back to the lesson 7 and 8 materials. So I pulled those out, and I would do the letter sound correspondences and then the nonsense words, and I may make up a game with that, and that's what I would do for the warm-up. They are repeating the same warm-ups that they had in earlier lessons. And then when it comes to about lesson 20, they don't have any warm-ups at all. They just have this sheet where the kids are supposed to read off of it several spelling patterns, but you could also substitute your own phonics work for the warm-up, especially at that point. So I think it's about 1 to 10 has these warm-up materials, and then 11 to 20 has reviewing the warm-up materials, and then from 20 on, they have a sheet that the kids are supposed to master, but you could easily substitute your own warm-up materials. So my warm-up is using the materials from 7 and 8 as directed. I don't need these spotlight words from 7. Affix bank. I'm going to introduce the affixes, and I'm going to have the students add them to their affix banks. Then I'm going to take the lesson's spotlight words, make sure the students can read those words, and then we're going to make words with the new affixes and the spotlight words for that week. You could use a marker board or a piece of paper for that. And then I do this where it's prefix, base, and suffix. And so we do not need the suffixes while we're making these words. So we're understanding that it's just the base with the prefix affixed to the word. And so that's how I would do the affix bank. First, introduce the affixes, write them on our bank, and then make words with the new affixes and our spotlight words for the lesson. Word play and write word. This is how I do it. I add the affixes to our affixes pile of ones we've already learned. So here are the prefixes we've already learned, so I'm going to add them there. I stick with this week's or this lesson's spotlight words, and then the affixes we've already learned. So here's all the affixes through 17. The prefixes on one side, the suffix, before, and then the suffixes after. And now we read the words. Encircled. Well, that one made sense. And then we flip it. Semi-urus. We're just kind of working on reading the words, even though they could be nonsense words. And then we just keep flipping through these same spotlight words. But you could also do it that you put all the spotlight words together, or just use ones that the kids need work on or something like that. So that's how I do wordplay and write words, is we just, after we've made the words with the affix bank and the new affixes and spotlight words, is we just flip through these. So doing all of the things I just mentioned will take approximately 25 minutes. So that's our day 1. Day 2, I'm going to do beat the clock, then text reading, then speedy read. It's all going to be done with this packet. I have them in that order: beat the clock, text reading, and then speedy read. So each student has a packet, and then I have one to look at, and then I do have the speedy read recording form. I staple things into groups of 5. So I have all the spotlight word sheets stapled into groups of 5, all the speedy read sheets stapled into groups of 5, so that there's not papers all over the place. I'm not even sure you need the spotlight word sheets if you're using the individual spotlight words, but you can try making the copies of the sheets and then seeing if you need them. So on this day, it's the timer day. So first we're going to do the beat the clock. We're going to read through the words. We're going to mark the affixes. We highlight them. Then I give the kids a little bit of time to read to self after we've read through these together. Then each kid comes up and reads it once, and then comes back and reads it a second time. And they're trying to beat their first time with their second time. So when the first kid is done reading the second time, then that child can go on to reading through the rest of the packet. So we're always constantly reading, either to self or to the teacher. So then we go through our Let's Read activity. And then we do speedy read, where we read the words to ourselves. And then, read together. I actually do it like this. When they're harder like this, I would read adaptable. Then the kids would read adaptable, collapsible, collapsible, and so on. And then we would read them together. So we spend quite a bit of time on that. Then they read to self, and then I do the 30-second timer. And then they just write their number here. I don't use the recording sheet for that. So we've then done the beat the clock and the text reading and speedy read. And then at that point, it's almost at the 25-minute point. So I go ahead and I get their rocket ship sheet, let them pick a sticker, put it on there, and our lesson is done. On day 2, I have the kids place their completed packet on the right side of their folders. And then after a few lessons, I take all the packets, I write a nice little message on them, staple them together, and I give them to the kids' classroom teacher so that she can look at them, see how well they're doing on these words, and then she gets those back to the kids. You could have a day 3. I had one group doing a day 3 and one group that did not. On day 3, you could read books. You could do spelling, and that's what I did. I did spelling and books on a day 3. For my kids who had a day 3, we spelled words that we had already worked on. We did some more work with spelling them because that's what they needed, and also worked on text reading. Besides just the sentences in here, we were reading actual books. With the other group, they were going faster, so we just had every Tuesday was our reading books day. So one day out of 5 instead of one day out of 3 having that reading day. So whatever works for you. You can do all of the stuff that's in the lesson in 2 25-minute periods, and then it would be up to you what else you would add to that. Or you could stretch it out if that's what works for your students. If you are interested in using word connections, be sure to check out my other video about it, which is word connections versus SIP's challenge for polysyllabic word reading. Thank you.